Hey Bio245, this is Vanessa again, and we're going to talk about the digestive system this week. We're also going to have another video for the lower digestive stuff, and we're going to talk about another video have urinary stuff. So for this particular one, we're going to focus a little bit on the upper digestive tract, and we're going to focus in this video on the mouth. So we're going to start at the top of the list, and we're going to try and work our way on down, and I'll show you guys a bunch of models, and hopefully it'll be cool. So first off on your list, you'll notice that you have these three different kinds of frenulums, and you might be thinking to yourself, what is a frenulum? A frenulum is basically an area, could be in the mouth, could be anywhere, that is a flap of skin that somewhat connects one structure to another. So for example, as you guys all know, under your tongue you have that little flap of skin that kind of connects your tongue to the bottom of your mouth, and that's going to be your labial frenulum. So here's this picture I drew that's kind of scary, but you can see that this person has their mouth open, they have their tongue raised so you can see underneath the tongue, and then their lips are stretched out. So I'm going to point out the three frenulums on this picture. We don't have a model that demonstrates frenulums, but we can show you pictures, and we mainly just want you to know what they are. And it says it's important because you might want to get one pierced one day and you want to know what they are. So, first off on our list, we have the labial frenulums. So there's a superior frenulum and an inferior frenulum. So if you pull up your lip, basically right above the middle of your teeth, you guys know this, but you have this little flap that kind of connects your upper lip to the gum line here. This here is your superior labial frenulum. And of course, labial just means lip, right? And same thing on the bottom, so this would be your inferior labial frenulum. Now, like I said, this person has their tongue lifted, so you can see that little flap of skin that connects the tongue to the bottom of the mouth. That's going to be their labial frenulum. So there you go for frenulums. Next, we can move on to some head models. So we have the tongue, the salivary glands, and the tonsils. So there's various models that you can look at to see each of these structures, and I have a ton of them to show you. So I'm going to start off with the tongue, because a lot of people get confused by the tongue, but it's not really all that hard. So in this guy's mouth here, you can see that there's his lips at the front, here's his teeth just behind. So this here is his oral cavity. This is the tongue inside of the mouth. So a lot of people go, what? That's the tongue? That's the tongue right there, okay? So this guy also really nicely shows all three, I believe, yes, of our tonsils. For the salivary glands, he only shows one though. So I've already shown you tongue, let's move on to the salivary glands. On this particular model, you can see on the outside of the head, one of the salivary glands. So this one really big back here behind the masseter, so behind the jaw. This guy here is going to be the parotid, so P-A-R-O-T-I-D, salivary gland. And you can see there's even a little tube that runs into the mouth to fill the mouth with saliva. So there you go, parotid, right there. Okay? That's what you can see on that particular head. On this particular head, it's actually nice because on the back it has all the corresponding labels with all the numbered structures. So on this particular one here, here's the tongue, here's the root of the tongue, all that muscle. This number 35 right here, that is going to be your sublingual salivary gland, sublingual. So whenever you hear the word lingual, you should be thinking of tongue. So sublingual, underneath the tongue. And number 36 here, on the back of this head model, it says it's submaxillary, so the submaxillary salivary gland, but submaxillary is just another word for submandibular. Submandibular, obviously this is going to be your mandible, so underneath it you'll have your submandibular salivary gland. And you can see it even has a little tube coming off of it to lead up into the mouth. You cannot see the parotid on this particular one. You can only see the parotid on the other one I showed you. I have another head model here that's a little more complete. Actually, I have two, and I'll show them both to you. So first off, here's our friend. He's happy to see you. So again, on the outside here, you can see the parotid salivary gland, so P-A-R-O-T-I-D, parotid, on the back of your jaw, basically. And you can also see if you turn him over slightly so that you can look under the mandible, so there's the mandible, so right there, that's going to be your submandibular salivary gland. If you turn his head around to look at the tongue, so for this particular model, sorry, it's like inverted on the camera, but here in this particular model, here's his tongue. So right underneath it, that's going to be the sublingual salivary gland. Okay, and then of course salivary glands are just secreting saliva into the mouth. I know I didn't mention that yet, but I'm sure you guys know that. Alright, and then this model is pretty much the same kind of deal, but I just wanted to show you because it looks slightly different. So here, again, on the back of the jaw is going to be your parotid salivary gland. Turn it over again, you see the submandibular salivary gland. And look underneath the tongue, so there's his tongue, and there's the sublingual salivary gland. Okay, so those are the ways that you can see the salivary glands. The other things that you need to look for are the tonsils. So tonsils are just part of your immune system, but you need to be able to identify them. So let's look at this big head model, because the big head model shows all three very well. Okay, so looking down here, we have on the list, we have the lingual tonsil, palatine tonsil, and pharyngeal tonsil. So it's a little bit easier than you would think. So lingual, again, if you think lingual, think language, think tongue. So here's your tongue on this particular model. So at the root kind of the tongue, like the back of the tongue, that's going to be the lingual tonsil, okay? The pharyngeal tonsil is going to be at the roof of the pharynx. And we haven't talked about the pharynx yet because we haven't covered respiratory. But the pharynx is basically this area up in here that connects like your nasal cavity to your oral cavity and down into your windpipe and your esophagus. So this is the whole pharynx. So at the roof of the pharynx will be your pharyngeal tonsil. So this right here. And whenever you look at tonsils or salivary glands or what have you, they're going to look kind of like chewed up bubblegum. Whenever you look at a gland, it's going to look like that chewed up bubblegum appearance. Lastly is the palatine tonsil on this particular model. The palatine tonsil is that one that you can see if you actually look down somebody's open mouth in their throat. So you'll see the little dangly guy, the uvula hanging down, and then you'll see that there's like 2 lumps on either side of the throat. So those guys at the sides of the throat, those are going to be your palatine tonsils. So here is the palatine tonsil stuck to the side of the wall here, kind of just underneath your uvula, okay? And this is the uvula, by the way. I think we talked about that. We talked about that in respiratory, I believe. This model shows them all really nicely as well. So this is the guy where I showed you that parotid gland just a little bit ago. But you can see here, there's the tongue right there. And at the root or the bottom of the tongue, there's your lingual tonsil. You can see the palatine tonsil is just like this lump right there that's stuck to the side of the wall just underneath your uvula. And then, for that pharyngeal tonsil at the roof of the pharynx, right there, that chewed up pink bubblegum stuff right there. Okay, so that's your pharyngeal tonsil. And you can pretty much look at every head model and see at least 2 of the tonsils. Okay, let's talk